Thank you so much for letting him be part of us.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Is that your father speaking through you?
That's my dad right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Does he like to be included?
He loves it.
Well, that's wonderful.
Amen.
It doesn't
Hare
take
Krishna.
much to go from 0 to 1,000,000 miles per hour in Krishna consciousness. All you need to do is be exposed to Krishna consciousness once. Chant Hare Krishna once. Your dad, you may be interested to know, will go back to Godhead because he's chanted Hare Krishna.
Hare
He doesn't
Krishna.
have to hear. He doesn't even have to chant. He can hear Hare Krishna. He'll go back to Godhead.
Amen. Chai, thank you so much.
Okay.
So Ramachandra, do we have a movie coming up?
Yeah, just a small 7-minute video.
That's nice.
Let's see.
Fantastic. Thank you.
This is the hold on, where is it? Let me load it up.
We're live now, right?
We are live.
Yeah. I love the videos. Keeps us focused.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get the video going here.
You know, Mahaprabhu, what you could do is look up a bunch of them online and then recommend them to Ramachandra.
All right.
All right. So, share sound. Okay, let me zoom in and we can get started.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
All right.
Hi.
There we go. Mahaprabhu, your movie's over.
That must have been Tompkins Square Park in 1966.
Yeah, I
Or
think,
earlier.
yeah,
Yeah.
very early in the movement. Yeah, it's saying Thompson Square Park, New York, 1966.
That's what it says?
Yeah.
Yeah, I recognize Kirtanananda and I think Hayagriva and Ray Rama.
Ah, acha.
Hare Krishna.
So,
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
That was beautiful.
All right.
Thank you, Rupa, for your interjection.
Oh, sure.
Sounded great.
Ray Rama and Hayagriva and Kirtan. Yeah. These are the early devotees, huh?
Hmm.
sorry?
Ray Rama joined 1966, huh?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know who the earliest devotees were. And there was Brahmananda and Gargamuni, but they weren't in the movie.
Ah, yes, they were not. Interesting.
And it must have been Tompkins Square Park because there's no other real place it could be.
Yes. This is before San Francisco.
Before San Francisco, definitely.
Yeah.
So San Francisco was the next year.
1967, huh?
Yeah.
And then,
But by then, we already had a temple in Montreal and one in Boston also.
in 1966 or 1967.
It may have been 1967, but I know that the Boston Temple was there in 1968 when I took initiation.
Okay. Jai. Okay.
How do we get to Godhead?
You've already done it.
Really? How?
Yeah. Did you ever hear the Hare Krishna mantra?
Yes.
That's your plane ticket. Put it in your pocket. Keep it there till they announce the flight.
It will take me to Godhead.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Is
So you're
that
already going to go back to Godhead. The question is, how long will it take for you to shed your material attachments and your sense of identity as your body?
Hare Krishna?
As long as we're invested in our body, it's like a person wearing a costume, a Halloween costume, basically. And in that costume, you can act out the way the costume looks. If you're a witch, you can sound like a witch. If you're a knight, you can sound like a knight. You know, it all depends what you want to look like or act like, and that's how you act out through the body. But it's the problem arises when a person doesn't know how to separate themselves from the costume, and they continue on, imagining that if they identify with the costume, that their life will become sublime. But there's no example. No matter how many operas a great opera singer can be in, at the end of the opera, they take off their costume. The same with Shakespearean plays. At the end of the play, they take off their costume. But while you see them on the stage, you would swear, oh, that person is Hamlet. Oh, that person is Othello, you know? But they're not. They're just in the costume mode. So we're seeing
Jai.
Mahaprabhu in the costume of Italiano, what am I saying? Of the South India, South Italy.
Yes.
The Sicilian.
Yes.
Yeah, he doesn't like it mentioned though.
We have Vinayak Prabhu online on our meeting here. Vinayak Prabhu, Hare Krishna,
Jai,
welcome
that's
Prabhu.
wonderful.
Hare Krishna.
And to Vinayak, I want to say I will offer my apologies if I was not able to answer his question as nicely as he might have liked, but we tried our best to do so.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhu. No, Prabhu,
Hare
it
Krishna.
is like my apologies from you because I was not able to explain the question properly. But your answer was very much clear. So thank you, Prabhu, always for your association.
Well, it's actually you're thanking me for Prabhupada, which is nice. I mean, for a disciple to be thanked on behalf of Prabhupada is a good thing.
Exactly. So,
Because it means the disciple heard something and understood a little bit of it and was able to share that with another party like yourself.
Right, Vinayak Prabhu, any more realizations, questions, comments?
Or for that matter, any further clarification of that one point?
Yes.
so at the moment, that point was pretty much all right for me because I did not try to find any letter or any conversation in which Prabhupada is claiming someone to be a pure devotee. So maybe in future iṣṭa-goṣṭhī we can discuss if I am able to find something.
The big gap is between the person like ourselves. We are joining the movement. Lord Chaitanya broke open the storehouse of love of God, which meant that which is reserved for the most esoteric Brahmins was now broken up and taken out, smashed out the doors, flooded the land with pure love of God. And because of that, anyone, regardless of species, can take up this Krishna consciousness movement. So even drunkards, even drug addicts, even meat eaters, malachas, chandalas, whatever, you don't have to be a Brahmin to chant Hare Krishna. And on the contrary, if you chant Hare Krishna seriously, you will become a Brahmin. But even if, no matter what your birth, no matter what your gotra, most people, like myself also, do not know their gotra. So how can I make it, who can take advantage, who can take initiation if they don't know their gotra? What's this?
Achyuta Gotra Prabhu.
So the people that don't know their gotra, which is the vast majority of people now in the world, they can chant Hare Krishna and become Brahmins. My understanding is that when you chant Hare Krishna and take initiation from a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, you take on his gotra by initiation. And in the case of Prabhupada, it's fairly quite exalted indeed. Ramachandra, is there?
Okay, so any more questions, Vinayak Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu, like one thing I wanted to discuss, that if we have some resources to build a temple in a city, and if we also have some preaching talent to gather up some audience and get them into Krishna consciousness, then should we help to build an ISKCON temple? Because if ISKCON temple is built, then that everything, that GBC gurus and everything would be coming with that. So in these circumstances, if we have resources to build a temple and to preach, then shall we build a ISKCON temple in a new city?
Yeah, that's a very good question. If you have resources, money, talents, devotees, would you build an ISKCON temple?
Not many talents, just one talent, one person trying to preach something, and of course, like monetary support a lot. But preaching talent is quite low. Monetary support is good, but not preaching support. But yeah, still something of preaching support, like few devotee, one or two.
Why not gather up the persons and then do it? Why not, without having a congregation, how can you can have your house as a temple or but with one or two persons, it's tough.
Yeah, the process is like opening the temple. Like even if we are gathering the congregation at initially, that's also a process to open a temple finally. So my question again is that shall we open a temple for ISKCON in that case?
Well, right now, no, Prabhu, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. It's saying you're muted. I'm not sure why it's saying you're muted, but I can hear you. That's fine. So you heard his question, right? He's asking that if you have resources and some talents to build an ISKCON temple, should we build it?
Well, you could definitely build a temple. You can follow the exact format that ISKCON follows. Well, the deity worship, the four regulative principles, the prasadam, the offerings, how to install the deities and worship the deities, the classes, Prabhupada's original books, Prabhupada's original melodies for kirtan. All of those things are very vital to have in a temple. If you do all of those things exactly the way Prabhupada established at the beginning, then you'll have a temple that's even more than a ISKCON temple that they are today. There's no need to give it a name. And there's tons of temples that don't have names. It doesn't have to be called ISKCON. It could be called whatever you like. You could call it Bhaktivedanta Temple, or or Prabhupada Temple. And then once we have created the changes in ISKCON that are so vitally required and that we're working on with the website and with the other work we're doing with this Zoom calls, we could create, then if that happens, then it would be possible to make it an ISKCON temple at that point. But you don't have to make it an ISKCON temple now. If you make it an ISKCON temple, they will want to own it and control it. End of story. Okay. Ramachandra, what do you think? You're quite expert in this area.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, ISKCON is a brand name and it's a copyrighted, whatever you want to call it. It's a name which cannot be used unless you surrender to the GBC and you have their management system, which is, we have discussed, like a Catholic church. So if you...
So yeah, we're in the process of rectifying that, but we haven't rectified it yet. But
Yes.
if we get the
Yes.
chance to rectify it, then that'll be very nice. Then you can call it ISKCON Temple. Prabhupada, with the GBC and direction of management, he wanted each temple to be independently incorporated anyhow. So if you independently incorporate your temple, maybe not by the name of ISKCON, but I mean, you could, instead of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, you could incorporate as the whatever city you're in, Society for Krishna Consciousness. Like if you're in New Delhi, the New Delhi Society for Krishna Consciousness. And then when you change, when the movement is rectified, and ISKCON goes back to electing their GBCs, it won't be as difficult as it might seem. The main thing is the congregations have to pretty well be united against the totalitarian ISKCON and go back to the notion of an ISKCON which is based on individual temples being autonomous, not simply part of a bigger corporation. Prabhupada wanted the incorporation of each temple is a corporation. Each temple is a corporation. So individually incorporated, you might say, well, I want to go to see an ISKCON temple. Well, which one? Well, where are they? Well, there's one on this block, there's one on that block, there's one in this part of the city, there's one in another part of the city. He said, well, don't they all under one management? No, they're all under their individual management, but they're part of a larger society known as ISKCON. But that ISKCON doesn't control the temples, it facilitates them. It helps them become stronger and more independent.
Yes, Prabhupada wrote the letter to Karandara. He wanted the devotees locally to manage and run the temple so they become strong and capable in ways that they can empower and help others open more and more temples.
Yeah, but that would have called for surrender on the part of the leaders of ISKCON, the temple presidents and whatnot, and it would have called for a service attitude, a desire to serve humanity by opening more and more centers where people can study Prabhupada's books and chant Hare Krishna. Well, unfortunately, the leaders didn't want that. They wanted to control a limited number of temples, absolutely, rather than not control the temples at all and let them be autonomous individual temples. You see? So it's quite a crime that's been committed essentially against Krishna. But as is sometimes the case in big multi-dimensional crimes, the ISKCON is going on because it is Krishna's will that it goes on. But it's not Krishna's will that it never be rectified. They think, oh, we got away with murder, literally. But so now we can do what we please with ISKCON as long as we keep the basic principles. But that's not true. Everything in ISKCON must be rectified back to what Prabhupada requested at the very beginning and at every stage thereafter. Any emergency platforms that Prabhupada created will not be required to be followed because he made basic principles. And if he said elect GBC, after that, the GBC, if they refuse to be elected, he can treat them like GBC, but it will not be the same thing from the spiritual point of view. And I assure you that at the time of their death, they will experience unpleasantness as a result of that disobedience. Okay?
Vinayak Prabhu, do you have any further clarificatory questions? You want to ask more? Anything else?
But we don't have any objection to opening a temple. Last night, Mother Anjali, a person that we've known and loved for many years, as a god sister, she can open a temple. Right now, she can't open, but in a short time, in a year or so, she can open a temple, and she's already got 6 or Ramachandra, does she have 6 children or 7 children?
I think she said 6 or
She said
7.
6?
I don't know.
I thought I
Something.
heard 7, but I could be wrong. Doesn't matter.
Anyways, Vinayak Prabhu, anything else you want to say or share?
Yeah, Prabhu, like even if we help building a ISKCON temple because like they have considerable resources and everything. So is that okay? Or shall we go to the other extreme?
Which is,
He's saying that ISKCON has considerable resources, and is it okay to help them establish temples?
if you want to open your own temple, is it okay to have them help you do it?
No, he's asking if ISKCON has a lot of resources, so can we help them open temples?
They don't, they have lots of resources. Why do they need help? My recommendation is open your own temple as a Prabhupada temple, and with Jagannath deities, Radha Krishna, Gaur Nitai deities, Vyasa-san with Prabhupada sitting in it. Even a small murti of Prabhupada is fine. Classes from Prabhupada's original books. It's not expensive to do. And if you do it very nicely, people will want to come and take part. But you have to resist the temptation of having Durga Puja or Shiva Puja or Ganesh Pujas, stuff like that. You can't be mixed. The minute that we add demigod worship, even though we worship the demigods as demigods, but the minute that they're in a Radha Krishna temple, that's called rasa bhasya, or incompatible rasa. It is a clash of intentions that in Bangladesh they learned the very hard way. That by combining Durga Puja with Krishna consciousness, temple is called rasa bhasya, and the Muslims are quick to pick up on it and kill people, kill devotees.
Yeah, that's the Hindu tendency to make everything a hodgepodge, khichdi, some crazy thing like that. That's what you see here in Sacramento. All the temples here, which you visited, they have Lord Shiva and Parvati deities, Hanuman, what's that called? Durga, all on the same altar, and everything is a mix.
That's an ISKCON temple?
No, it's not an ISKCON, the Hindu temples.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so that's a big
So
disaster.
Hindu in reality doesn't exist. Hindu is real name is Sanatana Dharma, and the more I research simply on the ordinary on Quora, I can look up Hindu. I find the whole history of India and the history of the Sanatana Dharma and the word Hindu and the fact that at the time of the independence of India, there was a faction that wanted to call India Bharat against instead of India. It's just amazing that there's always been a structure under the surface, under the political surface, that has wanted the original Dharma for India, for Bharat, I should say, and that the Sanatana Dharma is what the Hindus, called Hindus now, are supposed to represent, but not mixing with worshiping of Krishna. It's the deity, the Durga. If you know the story of Krishna's kidnapping Rukmini, she was on the way to the temple of Durga. Why? Because before a bride gets married, a queen, a princess gets married, she goes for some sanctification to the temple of Durga. That doesn't mean that they were Durga worshippers. It means that that is part of the demigod's relationship to the Varnashram Dharma. But when she was on her way to the Durga temple, Krishna galloped in and picked her up on his chariot. And Prabhupada describes just like a lion steals the prey from the jackal. And then Sisupal, who was planning to marry Rukmini that day, said, just see how Krishna comes like a jackal stealing the prey from the lion. That went on for some time, Sisupal, until Krishna finally killed him during the Rajasuya sacrifice 5,000 years ago. But you see, the standard, then, we should try to readjust ourselves to the Vedic standard. And we should encourage India to go back to being called Bharat. And Bharat is an extremely powerful, holy, sacred name. India is simply a hodgepodge created by the Muslims. And as long as the Bharat, as long as the worshippers from the Vedic culture are called Hindus instead of Sanatana Dharma, the Muslims will look down on anybody named Hindu, even if the Hindus are more powerful and have more money and have more of everything. They still look down because they're the ones that called them the N-word. They're the ones that said, "Oh, you're Hindus," and not allow them to be Sanatana Dharma. So to prevail in Bangladesh, instead of begging the Muslim government to give them religious tolerance, which is weird. If you're worshiping a deity, why are you going to the government for power and help? If you say instead, if you say to the government, if you say we are Sanatana Dharma, what can the Muslim say in the presence of a word, glorious term like Sanatana Dharma, eternal Dharma? That the Muslims do not even claim to be eternal. So that means you're one ahead, you're light years ahead of the Muslims with Sanatana Dharma, and you're under their thumb, or worse, under some other part of their body, if you call yourself Hindu. You see, now I have nothing against people calling themselves Hindu or practicing Hindu. All I can say is it makes you weak in the presence of Muslims, and I don't like that. Muslims should respect the Sanatana Dharma, even if they disrespect Hindus.
Got it. All right. Vinayak Prabhu, anything else, Prabhu?
Who's here on this?
We have
Vinayak.
Mahaprabhu, Vinayak, Rupa Manjari, yourself, and myself.
Really?
Five.
I thought we
yes.
heard other people coming on board too.
No, there was Mahaprabhu's dog coming on board. I mean, not Mahaprabhu, but wherever he's living. Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. If not anything else, I can pull up something here, then we can read.
Sure.
Narayana Prabhu or Rupa, do you, or Vinayak, anything else, Prabhus? Discussion? Let me see here.
It would be nice if we could look up that lady in South Africa, and it would be nice to look up the lady in Calcutta, and also Panchali Prabhu, to keep all these people active with our group.
Right. Okay.
And Shreya also, of course.
This is the original art for the Radha Krishna album. Have you guys seen it before? I'm not sure if you guys seen it, but let me put it on the screen. See it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Who's this guy in the brahmachari clothes on the lower left? Him.
Yeah, I can see him, but I don't know who he is.
There's Malati, Guru Das, Mukunda. There's Tamal Krishna there too. Interesting.
I don't think so, is he?
Tamal Krishna right by Subhadra, sitting down. And Jamuna.
That's Jamuna right there.
Yeah.
But where? I don't see Tamal Krishna.
Right next to no, maybe it's not Tamal Krishna. I'm just saying who that might be. Mukunda is there, right?
Let me see. I've lost the picture.
One big picture of Srila Prabhupada in the middle. Sure. It's Malati and Malati's daughter, huh? What's her name?
Saraswati, yeah.
Saraswati. You ever met her? Narayan?
Saraswati?
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost had a chance to bring her across on an airplane from Mayapur.
Oh, I see. I mean, after, she's...
Oh, when she grew up? No. She
No.
married a rich guy and is taking very nice care of her father.
Someone is selling this on eBay, so I was just looking at it, so I thought to share this.
Yeah.
All right, let me get that thing going here. Okay. Okay, let me load this thing up, then we'll get going. All right. Mahaprabhu still there? Okay, yes, he's still here. Mahaprabhu, can you hear us? Okay, he's there. Is that Mahaprabhu? Yeah. Okay.
And I finally got back on, and I lost the picture.
It's okay.
So
I turned off the picture.
You turned off the picture. Okay.
You want to see it again? I can put it on.
If you want, I don't know if there's anyone else I can identify, but maybe I can.
Okay, one second. Let me put it back on the screen here. Now is it? Okay. Here it is.
Okay. Now it's got crackles all over it. Oh, there's something much more to see, I don't think.
All right, try. Okay, stop the share. So let's continue then. I'd like to read something here from Prabhupada's quote from this book. It's a compilation of Srila Prabhupada's Vani. It's called, where is it? Srila Prabhupada, the Sun and the Lightning.
Who compiled it?
This is by one devotee named Ray Nitai. So it's just quotes from Srila Prabhupada's books. So I'll read 2 quotes and then we'll have a discussion. Okay, I'll project it on the screen. Let's see, you'll never find their brain substance cannot. So many times when we understand Krishna consciousness, we see it, we say everyone is a spirit soul, but then there's a distinction on the material body. For example, this quote I will be reading here, one second. What does Prabhupada say here? There is no G-R-E-A-T. So here Prabhupada is saying, where is it? It is. So my question is, there's a difference between matter and spirit, but we see that many of the things that Prabhupada writes about is connected with matter, meaning that, Prabhupada puts a great emphasis on these things. For example, this is a controversial subject. Srila Prabhupada says here, you'll find, therefore, that there is not a very great scientist, mathematician, philosopher among women. You will never find, because their brain substance cannot go. Artificially, do not try to become equal with men. This is not allowed in the Vedic Shastra. So this statement here is a very controversial statement, especially is being spoken in 1975 by Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada, seeing everything as part and parcel of Krishna, as a pure devotee, why is he making such statements like this?
Oh, would you say that all bodies are equal to each other?
No.
If you
all
take like
different.
100 men and 100 women, are their bodies are their minds all the same?
No.
Okay, so then you go into a further distinction. Will you find that how many men in that group will you find capable of nursing babies?
None.
Right. And how many women will you say that are capable of producing semen to conceive babies?
None.
Okay, so there is a difference between men and women.
Right.
Now, as far as philosophy is concerned, anything looked at in its simplicity is very easy to deal with.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if a man says, if a devotee male says chant Hare Krishna and a devotee female says chant Hare Krishna, then what's the difference?
Right, no difference.
Right. But if you create layers of more complexity, I find, at least personally, and this is in connection with women that I've known since 1968 in ISKCON, that if you talk with them, they have a wonderful memory about Prabhupada, they have a wonderful understanding of Krishna consciousness, but you can't talk to them about being the soul, because women are not engineered to be the soul. They can't separate themselves as easily from their bodies, because women's bodies are best engaged in being a body and producing a body, nurturing a body. And you can talk about Krishna very nicely and love Krishna. There's no difference in that part of the relationship between a woman and Krishna. But when it comes down to the actual philosophical level, women, I've never met very many women at all, except maybe Rupa Manjari, that have a capacity of separating themselves from the bodily conception in order to speak in pure abstract philosophy. I mean, women like Jamuna were they were women, you know, but they preached and thought and acted as women. They were wonderful. They had wonderful deity worship. Prasadam was incredible, but that was in an angle. It would not do for global preaching. And you will find also in the forest, you'll find men sadhus can sleep under trees, but you'll very seldom, if ever, find a woman sleeping under a tree. So this is not against women. This is for the fact what the French say between male and female. Vive la différence. Long live the difference between male and female. Why should we compress women into men and men into women? Now, in our present day society, can women develop algorithmic structures? Yes. Can women operate computers? Yes. Can women be CEOs? Yes. Because it's all within it's not spiritual life. It's within a lower level construct of expertise. And can they be very expert? Why, of course they can. But does that make them capable of being spiritually really intelligent as a man is supposed to be? Now, that raises another question, doesn't it? How many men are that far more intelligent than women? It's easy enough to say that women are not as intelligent as men in certain matters. I've already pointed out that in many matters, they're far more intelligent than men. For instance, you have a child. If you want to comfort the child, the woman will be more intelligent how to do it than the man will, usually. So when you have these things, what happens if you have men that are supposedly expert in spiritual life, but because they have Kanistha Adhikari gurus, they have an absolute lid on their spiritual advancement. Lid like that hatch on a submarine, screwed down around the edges of the lid to keep it tight. That's the way that the men have become. The gurus are. They don't let the disciple go further than they are. And if they're not going very far, nobody notices, because being spiritually advanced is not a factor. In New Dwarka, there used to be quite a few devotees with whom you could talk philosophy nicely. Now maybe 3 or 4. The rest of them are all expert at washing pots, expert at sweeping the grounds, expert at gardening, expert at pujari work, but it's all ritual. Where's the penetrating cognitive thought that separates them from women? So unfortunately, there were women in the past that could have easily knocked the socks off of these guys, but unfortunately, for the same reason of either having their own guru or having their guru Prabhupada replaced by this type of clunk-headed gurus, the women have lost their intelligence. The intelligence they had has largely gone.
So you're saying,
if I talk to them and remind them, just talk to them the way I used to talk in the 80s, they will say, "Oh, Prabhu, that was so wonderful. I haven't heard anything like that in so long." Why not? The movement is older now. It should be more advanced, not less advanced than it was in 1968 or 70.
yeah, it seems like when these Kanishta Adhikari gurus swept in and took over the whole movement, the intelligence of these people went down also.
How could it not? When we used to go and sit in front of Prabhupada, just seeing him, just hearing him, if he talks to you in person, amazing. You feel yourself being uplifted into the spiritual sky simply by Prabhupada's presence. And if you sit in front of one of the ISKCON Kanishta gurus, you say, "Oh, he's so nice. He has a good smile. He's got a lot of Shalagram Shilas. He has a nice Tulsi necklace. Oh, that's all very nice." But where does it go? It's no more than looking at a woman. I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking at women, but I'm saying it's no more spiritually advancing than looking at a well-dressed woman who is, so you could say, well, is that well-dressed woman guy, it's a well-dressed woman who's intelligent equal to him? If he's a guru, shouldn't she become a guru? Well, if you start with the premise that he could be a guru, then obviously, why shouldn't she be a guru? Two stupid people can increase the number of stupid people, which is the whole purpose. No, the idea is if the guru is Srila Prabhupada, who's going to say Prabhupada is still our guru? He said ISKCON is my body. So if ISKCON says body, you can take initiation from Prabhupada's body. That's what I did. And it can be done with a pujari, with a fire sacrifice that does wedding ceremonies and whatnot. No problem. So if Prabhupada is the guru and you're thinking of Prabhupada and listening to Prabhupada, then it won't be sunk down into blather, drool, mucus, instead of intelligence. So in that climate, you say if the older men are getting stupider and stupider as they become gurus, as a stupid guru has a stupider disciple who becomes an even stupider guru, and then he makes a stupider guru, and then he makes a stupider guru, then even 5-year-old children can become gurus.
Yeah, I mean, if they can vote to be gurus, why not, 5-year-old guy can, be guru, 6-year, 7-year, right.
Yeah.
It makes no difference.
In the time of Srila Prabhupada, there were 6 years, 7 years old children who were smarter than most of the gurus that we see floating around ISKCON today. Why? Because they found Prabhupada to be astonishing. Because the child, when astonished, sits there with his eyes open, his mouth open, stares ahead, and listens with his whole heart, soul, and mind. And when he hears Prabhupada, and then he speaks, what's he going to do? Come up with gobbledygook or Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck? No, he comes up with Prabhupada.
Yeah, I think this is one of the problems, that the devotees are listening to too much classes of the so-called, Kanishta Adhikari initiators, and most of them, have not realized all these things that Prabhupada's books talk about, and in this way, their devotional life gets stunted because they're not hearing from the right source.
And it's not necessarily their fault. if somebody joins the movement and says you need to have a guru, and that guru is a disciple of Prabhupada or a disciple of Prabhupada, and you take initiation from him, and he will, he can deliver you because he's seen the truth and all that stuff, then why wouldn't they follow that instruction? People are sheeple. Why wouldn't they follow the instruction? Most people want to know what the right thing to do is, be told to do it, and then be guided to do it, and then do it.
Most people are sheeple. That's a very good point.
Yeah. Where's the requirement for being sharp thinking?
Yeah, that's the thing. When you start thinking sharply, there's no facility for that in ISKCON,
Oh, when I go and talk with my godbrothers, people from my generation are younger than me, but still Prabhupada disciples, they look at me with dread and apprehension because I don't speak the speak. I don't speak the patois, or in French, what is it in English? Patois, the jargon. I don't speak the way they speak. And if I don't speak the way they speak, there must be something wrong with what I'm thinking. They assume it. And when I raise questions, they look at me with deep and utter suspicion. And then I ask, what do you think? They said, well, there could be something to that, I suppose. But they don't dare commit themselves because they don't have anything to commit themselves with. You have to have an independent intelligence to commit yourself to anything. And if your whole thing is subservience to whoever is the GBC, bogus GBC, temple president, temple management, whatever, if you just are obedient to those persons, then how can you possibly think?
Right. Very good point. How
And
can
if
you?
somebody comes with an idea, like if I come here myself and I hear someone on the Zoom call say something, I say, that's a great idea. I like that, if I like it. Not just to flatter them, but they say something, I say, wow, that's amazing. And just like I liked Vinit's question yesterday, it was inspiring to think about his thought process and what would make him want to ask that question and what sort of answer would be useful for him and how can that apply and does it have impact on the Hindu community? And so how can he explain to the Hindu community the difference between Hindu and Vaishnava? I mean, there's a whole bunch of stimulating ideas and cross themes and cross sections to the concept that we can openly discuss in iṣṭa-goṣṭhī, where everything is openly discussed as Jiva under the guidance of Lord Paramatma. But in the ISKCON temple, there's Paramatma's out of the question.
Yeah, that's the thing here. I was always for having open discussions and having deep discussions, but with the ISKCON of Sacramento people, we never got anywhere. Even though I presented them letters that Srila Prabhupada had brought on management and how to manage and this and that, still they had no intelligence to think outside the box and do something positive. They were always in a group.
They can read it. They can read it and hear you speak it, and then they could ask the question, but is it authorized? Meaning, did the GBC authorize it? Did the local guru authorize it? Just because Prabhupada said it, does that make it authorized?
Well, that's the thing, that's the Indian way of thinking.
That's how they think. Because for them, authority means the guy who gives me a plate of prasadam when I go into the temple.
Try. Yeah, so Prabhupada says this Krishna consciousness movement is training people to be independently thoughtful. So this thing is not encouraged in ISKCON, or at least, the local.
No, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be subserviently obedient.
Hmm.
And if you're obedient, that means you're surrendered. If you're surrendered, that means you're Krishna conscious.
Right. I have to surrender to you, right? And then
Yeah.
I have to become your
So
servant.
if you surrender to an ISKCON guru, you're surrendering to one of my godbrothers. If you do that, why not surrender to me? Oh
Right.
no, you're not in charge.
That's the problem, right? And I always encourage them to participate in these types of discussions, but from that crowd, none of them came. So we can see here, what level or how they think. Even you encourage them during the Rath Yatra time to come, hey, let's have a discussion. And no one ever, they took your phone number, but no one ever called you, did they?
No, they probably burned my phone number, and so they were what you call it, exorcising a ghost or something.
Jai. So this is one of the reasons why iṣṭa-goṣṭhīs are so important. Heart-to-heart discussions without any reservations. So
Yeah, heart to heart means jiva to jiva,
yes,
and heart to heart means paramatma to paramatma to jiva to paramatma.
Hmm.
We ask Paramatma for words to speak. Then I speak by words to you. You ask Paramatma to give the response, then you respond from Paramatma to me. And then I ask Paramatma, how can I respond again? Easy to do.
So let's see, we have some comments from our devotees watching on YouTube. So let me share that on the screen. All
Wonderful.
right, where is it? Krishna, all right. Okay, this is it here. Let's see. Okay, someone mentioned, I think they're moving on now to the quality of intelligence based on gurus, not so well qualified. Then Christopher says, so when you are talking about people easily led, how do you consider the current COVID situation? Question to Narayan. Is the story we are being told the truth or far from the truth?
Oh, the story we're being told, if we're talking about Dr. Fauci, is unrelated to the truth. The coronavirus is a real virus. What they say about it is unrelated to the virus, and it's unrelated to the cure. They insist on the vaccination. Okay, so you get the vaccination. Or how about things that are known to cure, like hydroxychloroquine or the what's the other one? Is
A good diet.
yeah, good. Well, that's what I do. Rupam, I'm curious. Is there?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
What's the name of the other?
Ivermectin. Ivermectin.
Ivermectin, yeah. Ivermectin. Those two things are highly effective in curing
Coronavirus.
the COVID. Yeah. So why would they not allow them to be used, considering they're letting the COVID vaccines be used in such a way that many people are killed, many people are paralyzed, many people are given blood clots in their lungs and their brains. And a lot of people, today there was on the news a question as to whether the sports stars, the professional athletes, they're beginning to suffer some sort of debilities. And the question has been risen today, are these sports, professional sports guys make millions of dollars a year to be athletes, professional athletes, are their disabilities and their injuries on the field now becoming related to the vaccine?
Okay, yes.
So I don't know if that answers your question. I sense that you may be at least marginally anti-vax.
Yes.
But I agree with Ramachandra. If you want to avoid the vaccine, avoid it, cook your own food, eat simple food, don't eat things that are known to, avoid sugar, avoid much sugar, avoid all the things that are not good for you,
Right.
starches and whatnot, and eat simple diets, lots of vegetables, organic vegetables, and cook them enough to kill the germs. And the odds of you surviving all of this are very high.
Try.
Even if you get COVID, if you're unvaccinated and get COVID, the odds of you surviving are very high. If you're healthy, not geriatric, and not obese, and not with a heart condition or cancer or so many other underlying factors.
Complications, yes. COVID generally attacks people with complications much more harder on their body. So,
of course.
Yeah.
But that's true in every flu season also, right?
Yeah, right.
And another factor is if there's transparency in the COVID situation, why aren't they transparently comparing side by side the number of flu deaths right now to the number of COVID deaths right now? It's as though the flu doesn't exist. But every year there's been tons of deaths from flu. Why is suddenly COVID such a danger when flu has been around and killing people for decades, for hundreds of years for that matter?
All right, so he's satisfied with that.
Is he okay with the answer?
Yes.
Jai, my obeisance probably.
Okay. All right, so let me read some more things from my book I have here.
Are there more comments on the
Nope,
or not yet?
not yet.
Well, we welcome them. Yeah, read from your book.
You can read from your book too, Narayana Prabhu. Okay, so this is a very important quote. I mean, all of Prabhupada's quotes are important, so this is very interesting that I'll read here. I'll project it on the screen so people can see and follow online.
Yeah, well, you could say it's a good quote, but you could also say timely quote or pertinent to our conversation quote.
Oh, yeah.
Because his quotes are, as you say, they're all good, but they don't always apply to this issue on this day.
This one applies right now, issues to right now. And hold on. Well, let's see. This is 9. One second, Prabhu, let me load it up.
John.
This applies to these applies to the ISKCON Kanishta initiators also. So I'll highlight it and I'll share it with our group.
Really?
Yes.
Sounds very exciting.
All right, let's go here. Share. So here we go. This is from a journey of self-discovery question and answers or discussion from Srila Prabhupada.
Who's he discussing with?
Bhagavan Das Goswami.
Who?
Bhagavan.
Oh, his disciple, Bhagavan. My godbrother, Bhagavan?
Yeah, yes. Okay, so Bhagavan Das Goswami is saying, today the priests are afraid to speak too strongly, or else they'll be fired and get no salary. And the politicians, they're also afraid to say what they really believe. They're afraid that they'll be voted out or get no more money to support themselves. That is Bhagavan saying. Huh?
Excellent question.
Today the priests are afraid to speak too strongly, or else they'll be fired and get no salary. And the politicians, they're also afraid to say what they really believe. They're afraid and that they'll be voted out or get no money to support themselves. Then Prabhupada says, Srila Prabhupada, the priests are after money. They're not first class. They are low-class men. This is the reason that Christianity has fallen down. The priests cannot speak straightforwardly. There is a straightforward commandment, thou shalt not kill. But because people are already killing, the priests are afraid to present the commandment straightforwardly. Now they are granting man-to-man marriage. What to speak of others? The priests are sermonizing on this idea of man-to-man marriage. Just see how degraded they have become. Previously, was there any conception like this, at least outside America? Nobody thought that a man could be married to another man. What is this? And the priests are supporting it. Do you know that? So what is their standard?
Johnny.
And is this your wife, Narayan Prabhu, your ex-wife, Jyoti Gamai Devi Dasi?
Who?
This is Jyotirmayi Devidasi.
No, not.
Oh, okay.
I have a daughter. We have a daughter named.
Oh, that's your daughter. Sorry. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Anyways, this. Okay. Yeah, that was my mistake. So this is very important here. That Prabhupada is saying here that most of the priests and gurus, they can't really speak what is actually straightforward and truthful because they're after money and these things. They're not actually first class. I mean, what ISKCON Guru is talking about, that you should be an Uttamadhikari before accepting disciples. I mean, no one, I have not heard anyone talking about it.
Right.
Have you?
No, not even slightly. In
So
fact,
in this,
everybody is trying to argue the opposite.
yeah, and in this way, Krishna consciousness movement can also come to the standard of this Christianity has fallen down. So Krishna consciousness, if people are not trained or they don't understand the philosophy as Prabhupada presented it, it can become another Hindu religion. I mean,
Or Christian, because they formatted it like the Catholic Church.
Yes.
Instead of the GBC being elected, they now have the GBC self-appointed, like the cardinals of the Vatican, and the cardinals of the Vatican, appoint the Pope.
Yes.
Well, in this case, they appoint nearly 100 popes, but the principle is the same. You have a group of ordinary men electing a person who's meant to have divine power.
Yeah, so this is a problem in the institution, which can be fixed rather easily because Prabhupada just appeared not too long ago, just like the Christians. Jesus Christ appeared, what, 2,500 years ago? At least that's what they say, right?
Well, he appeared exactly according to the local myth 2021 years ago.
Okay.
Because we're in the year of Christ's birth ourselves. So 2021 means 2021 years since Christ's birth.
Yeah. In our case, Srila Prabhupada just, you can say, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, then the Acharyas appeared, then the Krishna consciousness movement came to the West, and how everything is recorded and archived. So,
and that's why I like to say that what we're experiencing is not a late version of the Vedic culture, because when Lord Chaitanya appeared as the Yuga Avatar, he destroyed all religion, including the Vedic culture religion.
right.
He destroyed everything except chanting Hare Krishna.
Hmm.
Now, Prabhupada has written so many books, that's to give us an idea of who Krishna is, if we didn't know. If we knew who Krishna was, he wouldn't need any Krishna book or need any Srimad Bhagavatam. But we don't, so we need a book like Srimad Bhagavatam. We don't know that Krishna gives instructions, so we have a Bhagavad Gita.
Right.
We don't know how to worship Krishna, so we have Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Right.
But all of those factors have nothing to do with the fact that we're not a religion, nor has Lord Chaitanya created one. A lot of people argue with me, but the Sampradaya goes back to Brahma and Manu and whatnot. It goes way, way, way back. I said, yes, but Lord Nityananda is Balaram. It goes back to Balaram, but Lord Nityananda is Balaram. We're going to have to readjust our thinking. Yuga Avatar means, like you go in a classroom and it's got all sorts of mathematical calculations all over the blackboard. But you take an eraser and you erase the blackboard. Now it's got a just blackboard. Then you can put what you like on there. They say, but what about those calculations that you just erased? I erased them. They're not there anymore. Now this is what we're studying today. Oh, but what about the other things that were written? No, this is it, right on the blackboard. Look at it. So Lord Chaitanya came and said, chant Hare Krishna. And he didn't give a second instruction or a third one, or even an adaptation of that one. He just said, chant Hare Krishna. End of story. Bye. He's Yuga Avatar means he's the God that everybody's worshiping him. Everyone, as we start to think of the people listening in, consider, isn't everybody worshiping in a church or temple or mosque or the Brahmins or the Hindu temple? Aren't they all worshiping to please and find and please and satisfy God, so God will give a benediction to the person who does the praying? Well, what if that's all gone now? And it's been gone for 450 years. Ever since Lord Chaitanya appeared, gone. But we're still struggling trying to maintain different religions on earth simply out of ignorance. Because when God shows up, supposing Lord Chaitanya comes up to a Christian, up to a Catholic in the church, says, what are you worshiping? Oh, we're worshiping Jesus, who's the Son of God. Okay, but why? Well, because we want to go eventually to heaven. And you could say that to a Jew, you could say that to a Muslim, and everybody else too. He said, but here I am. I am the God you want to go find. I'm standing here and you're arguing with me as to whether or not to worship me or to follow my instruction or to follow the instruction of somebody that died 1,000 years ago. Oh, 1,000 years ago, I'll go with that one. Why? If God stands in front of you, in your presence, you're going to say, I'm going to go with something else? Then what sort of God is it you're looking for? If you don't want God, the original personality of Godhead, Krishna, Radha and Krishna, coming as Lord Chaitanya, as Yuga Avatar. The key word is Yuga Avatar. Why? Because in this Yuga, we have a new construct for spiritual activity never before experienced, and after 9,500 more years from now, will never be experienced again. Lord Chaitanya does reappear occasionally. And when I say occasionally, I mean, Rupa Manjari looked this up. Lord Chaitanya appears once. What was it you found out, Rupa Manjari, how often Lord Chaitanya appears? Hello?
Once in the day of Lord Brahma.
Yeah. Okay, once in a day of Lord Brahma. The day, and how long is the day of Lord Brahma? It's 6,400,000,000 years. So if you want to miss out on Lord Chaitanya this time around, well, get yourself ready to take birth for 6,400,000,000 years worth of lifetimes of whatever species you prefer, and you can see Lord Chaitanya again.
That's a very, very long time.
Yes, it's many, many manus. It's innumerable number of yuga cycles, kalpas, and it's innumerable number of yugas. What to speak of years in our time.
Well, yeah. So that's so the point is that Srila Prabhupada came and gave all this, and now the ISKCON movement, which Prabhupada started, has deviated a little bit. So it can be rectified immediately if people get educated. And
Immediately. All the ISKCON has to do is to fall on their knees, put their heads on the ground at Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet, and declare, yes, the Lord Chaitanya is a Yuga Avatar. All our ideas about Sampradaya are out the window. What is our Sampradaya? It's Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, Gaurkishora Swamiji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and a couple of others going back to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is incredibly recent history, 4,500 years.
No, 450 years.
I'm sorry, did I say wrong thing? 450 years. No, 550 years. He appeared 550 years ago. We say 500 years ago, but it's 50 years has passed since that time. That's a big chunk of 500 years. 50 years is half of 100 years and 1/5 of 500 years. That's not much time. There's lots of people could trace their I could trace my genealogy back to the Mayflower on my mother's side, and to 1657 on my father's side. That's a long time for most people that measure their time in terms of what's on Netflix next. But if you measure your time by your family history, the Mayflower is a few hundred years. Mayflower came shortly after Lord Chaitanya. So it's very recent history. You see what I mean? Lord Chaitanya. Yes. So if the Yuga Avatar is recent history, then we can be understood that we are slow in picking it up because we're so used to the religions of the last 5,000 years. But that's useless. It won't help us at the time of death. And right now, considering that the only person that gave those religions any hope of spiritual power are gone.
Right.
In other words, if the religion is gone, the God that they're worshiping is here and now in the form of the Yuga Avatar, Lord Chaitanya. So how long will Lord Chaitanya be present? For the Yuga, of course, he's the Yuga Avatar. He's not just a figure that appeared 500 years ago.
I think,
bye-bye, I'm going to go take a nap. No, he will be present as long as the holy name of Krishna is chanted until the end of the 10,000 years of the golden age of Kali.
I think people don't appreciate this part that, that this Krishna consciousness movement is just getting started. At least they're
Oh, yeah.
they're thinking in a relative terms. Oh, I'm taking their bodily conception of life, not the 10,000-year understanding that, hey, this movement is destined to grow for this amount of time, and we're right in the
Oh, yeah.
beginning of it.
Their minds are very fouled up. Oh, Prabhupada lived to be, what was it, 87 years old?
Yes.
Prabhupada lived to be 87, was a human being that lived to be 87 years old. If I become his successor guru and I'm not killed, murdered, or die in a weird car accident, I will probably be alive for another 50 years. And so that will be fantastic for me. They can't even begin to imagine that there's no relationship between Prabhupada and a human being. And they can't imagine that they will live to see the fruit of their weird labor of ridding themselves of Prabhupada just so they could take over, just to see their bodies being thrown out the window or crashed into a windshield in a car crash with decapitation, near decapitation as the result.
Yeah, I mean, for us disciples of Srila Prabhupada, we have the original books, the conversations, letters, everything. I mean, it's a very unique time in this history of Kali Yuga that everything is recorded and archived. So it's unimaginable to think like this. I mean, imagine Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's writings. All this is coming through Srila Prabhupada. So.
Yes. And those are only preparatory things. Prabhupada told us not to bother reading the acharyas like Thakur Bhaktivinoda Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He said, you will not understand that it was meant for my generation, for my reading. Yes, that's a fact. But the actual fact is that all they did was pave the way for Prabhupada. Why do we need to go back and look at the ancestry? We don't go to the graveyard and dig up our grandfather or great-grandfather and look at the dead body.
Right.
And they're not dead. They're eternally living and practicing, and they're very exalted. But I'm saying psychologically for a disciple, why does he need, unless he doubts the spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, why does he feel the need to go back and check on things from a different discipleship?
Right. It doesn't make sense. It's just a lot of wasted time.
Well, it's a waste of time unless you doubt Prabhupada.
Right.
Like
that's the thing.
Nita, he heard that he rejected Krishna consciousness. I think he was a sannyasi. He rejected Krishna consciousness in Prabhupada when he heard that Bhaktisiddhanta took initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji by Gaur Kishore Das Babaji handing him a handful of Ganges mud as his Diksha ceremony. Can you imagine? So he quit ISKCON. He was an expert Sanskrit scholar. No doubt a Mayavadi Sanskrit scholar in his previous life. But he was a Sanskrit scholar, and the books, after they kicked Pradumna out for saying that no godbrother should sit more than a quarter of an inch higher than his godbrother on the ground, meaning the thickness of a kusa grass under the guru, that they rejected Pradumna because they wanted big thrones, the type that I designed for Prabhupada.
Okay, try. Rupa Manjari, any comments? Realizations? Okay, I'd like to, if she's not going to say anything, I'd like to read a letter from Letter to Rupa Nuga, Los Angeles, January 15, 1969. Srila Prabhupada writes, please try to introduce the reading of the Bhagavad Gita as it is in your university where you shall be teaching. I understand that some rubbish commentaries upon Bhagavad Gita are allowed to be studied in every university. So if you can replace our Bhagavad Gita as it is, it will be a great advancement for our missionary activities, and people will thereby be benefited. So the point I wanted to make is that all of these books that Srila Prabhupada has written on the pure devotional path is kicking out all the bogus religions, everything out the door. And Prabhupada is directly saying this. And I think one of Prabhupada says, I think in one of his conversations, that one of for my reasons of coming was to defeat all these scientists and these bogus gurus, right? Who are cheating the people in the name of religion, spirituality, and all this.
And science.
And science, right. So Prabhupada presented various arguments that, the scientists say that, the soul is made out of this and this. And so Prabhupada challenged them, why don't you make it? Right?
Yes.
And they said, oh, we cannot do it.
So what was the date of that letter?
This is January 15th, 1969.
Really?
Yeah. January 15th, 1969.
Well, do you know what happened? He gave a night class, and he gave it to a large number of devotees, of people, students that wanted to learn about the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
And you know what resulted from that class? I can't remember every single person. But Bhagavan, his wife Lakshmi Moni, his wife Krishna Bhamani, Lakshmi Moni, and her husband, who was a GBC, the guy that acted in behalf of fought ISKCON on the Gurukulis. Do you remember his name? And
Jagadish.
Jagadish, yes. Jagadish, Nityananda, who is the guy on the poison issue. Nityananda, that's 5. And there were about 3 or 4 others too. They came out of that one class.
Wow.
So when Prabhupada said to do that, look what happened. I think they had 8 or 10 devotees out of that class. 8 or 10 students from that class, night class, all became devotees.
Jai.
And these are people like Bhagavan and Lakshmi Moni. They were progressing to medical school. They were from powerful, wealthy families. And they were going to high grades, early in intelligence. They were going to medical school in Detroit. So they rented a house, 3-4 bedroom house, Victorian house on 74 Forest Avenue. And they lived in it. But they wanted to practice Krishna consciousness, and they had a cardboard box covered with a cloth and pictures of Prabhupada and Lord Krishna, and they burned incense. And they wanted to make a temple, they wanted it to become a temple, even though it was a rented building on Forest Avenue. So they sent me there in 1969, later in 1969. And I carved Jagannath deities for them. I built a Vyasasan for Prabhupada. I built an altar curtains, painted the place to look on the inside like a temple, all of these things. And by the time we were there, Bhagavan had also, I taught them all how to use the incense offerings, the different types of offerings of ghee lamp and whatnot. All they did before was called dupe artik, which was a dupe meaning incense artik. And they did the whole place. And then we began to have classes there and magnificent kirtans, incredibly good kirtans. And then people came and joined by droves. While I was still there, over the few months I was still there, we got at least 50 people joining the temple.
Wow. Hmm.
So you can see what it was like in the early days without a GBC sitting on your head to
Right.
have a temple.
Yeah, with Prabhupada implementing the GBC, it was more structure and the movement should have continued to grow very fast, but
Well, if
apparently,
they had done what Prabhupada did, the GBC
Right.
would have done, not to be too puffed up sounding, but the GBC would have done what I did.
Mhm.
You go to an apartment, a house with people wearing karmi clothes. You get them to wear devotee clothes. You teach them all the mantras for doing offerings.
Right.
That's
Sure.
what I did. I did the GBC work. And or what the GBC would do if they had a group just like that. You teach them everything. And then I took them to an Indian store and we bought all the Arctic items that happened to be on sale there for some strange reason. And then we went out on Sankirtan, which they'd never tried before. See, that's what the GBC can do with a temple filled with karmi wannabes that want to be devotees.
Hmm. Hmm.
You go and you train them up. And then after I trained them up, they immediately created so many devotees, including, many devotees who became famous devotees. The ones that all came out of that class and everything. But the point that I'm really making is that we took a house, turned it into a temple. The temple attracted people like crazy. All we did was chant Prabhupada kirtans, Prabhupada Mridanga beats, incredibly nice prasadam cooked by the ladies and the men. And that was the result. That's what the GBC is meant to do.
Right.
So supposing the temple president GBC in the Prabhupada's ISKCON, Prabhupada's GBC, 3-year term GBC, doesn't know how to carve a deity. Well, they could have hired, but they could have got somebody like me to come and carve the deity. What if they don't know how to do Pachari work? They would. That's the whole point. So you see, that temple on Forest Avenue in Detroit was a perfect example of how the GBC could take a house full of medical students and turn it into an active temple.
Right. Hmm.
And that can be done again.
Right.
All we have to do is take away what Prabhupada calls profit, adoration, distinction, which I have shortened down in their case to money and power. They wanted money and power, so they'd rather be 100% in charge of a few temples than not at all in charge of dozens of temples. See, I never went back and claimed any rights to be, because I set the temple up. I never said I'm in charge now because I set it up. Whenever I came back, it was running perfectly still, and I was a guest at the time I came back a couple of times to Detroit. So it wasn't as though I obtained any honorific or prestige. Of course, they had the same deities, they treated me very nicely, but they didn't treat me like a guru. They treated me like a godbrother, which is exactly what I was, and it's exactly what I still am. So you see, that's how Prabhupada's GBC would have worked in action had it been given a chance. See, so now I taught them how to do Sankirtan, but I'd worked, Mr. John and I had practiced Sankirtan in San Francisco. Mr. John practiced Sankirtan in San Francisco and other places. We got together in Los Angeles. We went out with 2 gigantic 40 men on Sankirtan, 2 bus loads, van loads, I should say, crammed in. There are no seatbelts. And we all went out there and chanted every Friday, Saturday night, every day. And every day from 10 o'clock in the morning, we'd get in the vans, go out there to the Hollywood. We'd get out and we would chant until 4 in the afternoon. Then we'd come back for the evening program and chanting and everything and taking prasadam. And then at 8 o'clock, we'd go out again until midnight. Then we'd come back in and then we'd be up at 4:30 in the morning.
Right.
So that's what the GBC would have taught the temple guys sitting in their apartment wearing army clothes, wondering what to do next. I want to be a devotee, but what's next? How to do it. If Bhagavan had tried to do it on his own, it would have taken a very long time and they wouldn't have gotten very far. And they probably would have just had a few occasional classes and wished like anything that somebody came to guide them. But I came in within less than 2 months, it had turned into a gigantic explosion. Not because of me, but because just doing the things that Prabhupada wanted done in temples. And that's what the GBC is meant to do, is to set up the things in an apartment so that the apartment turns into a temple, the temple turns into a house, the house turns into a community, and the Indian people come and join in and go into business 50-50 with the temples and start selling all sorts of Krishna conscious things and making groceries and foodstuffs available to the temple at wholesale, so they don't have to work out independent deals. So that's how synergistic it can be. But instead, they wanted complete control over a few temples rather than no control over hundreds of temples.
Okay, so Rupa Manjari Prabhu, can you read this highlighted part if you can, Prabhu?
Sure. Regarding incorporation of our ISKCON centers, we want to run all our centers as non-profit religious organizations. That is the main point. Keeping this point in view, too much official control is not too good in spiritual life. The centers should remain spiritually fit and independent. Some control must be there, as is now. Too much control means so many vouchers. Gradually, it will become a mundane institution. All our managers should be spiritually advanced, simple and honest in carrying out the orders of the spiritual master and Krishna. That will be a nice standard. Democracy in spiritual affairs is not at all good, but breeds power politics. We should be careful about power politics. Our only aim should be that each and every devotee is fully dedicated to Krishna. Then things will go on nicely.
So I'd like to have a little bit of discussion on this.
Could I ask, where is that quote from?
This is a letter to Karandara, Bhaktivedanta Manor, July 19th, 1973.
Is it one that we already have in our work for the DOM? Because if it's not, why not email it to Rupa Manjari, and then we can include it in the work we're doing for the website.
Yes, yes. So Prabhupada here makes very significant points here. The center should remain spiritually fit and independent. Yeah,
Yeah.
then
I just finished explaining independent means independently incorporated, not just independent, like they're not one big temple.
Yes. And then Prabhupada says, some control must be there, as is now. Too much control means so many vouchers. What does it mean by too much control means so many vouchers?
That I was hoping to hear an explanation. But I suppose that he says, as it is now means one temple, president, one temple. Not that you make a more complicated situation. A temple would have temple president, treasurer, vice president, like that. And then pretty much 3-4 people at most running the temple. And not more, no big bureaucracy in the temple. As far as it is now, that would be what I would say that would probably have been as it is now. What is the year of that letter?
1973.
Okay, yeah. So that was supposedly after the direction of management, but they hadn't adopted it. So that vouchers, that's a good question. I can speculate as the meaning of voucher, or it is probably an English sort of term, but vouchers would have to mean that
A handout.
delegated.
A handout. A handout, no?
Well, that could be also, yeah.
Like,
Or
it,
yeah.
instead of one temple empowering other temples in a way of training them up, this temple controls the other temples. You know what I'm saying? By giving them
Exactly.
money
Well,
and
that's certainly Prabhupada's conclusion.
yes. For example, Los Angeles temple is there. Now people get trained up there and they go out and open more and more temples. And
Right.
and in this way, the people get trained up at the center and then they go out. In this way, there's no vouchers, meaning that, Los Angeles is not constantly like, getting them in and sending them out and the money is going to Los Angeles. No, they get trained up and they go out.
Yeah, that's a good explanation.
And then Prabhupada says in the same paragraph, gradually it will become a mundane institution.
Well, no kidding.
So Prabhupada is seeing all this, how, it become a mundane institution.
Well, fortunately, even at its worst to date, it has not become an entirely mundane institution compared to, say, the Hindu temples, such as the ones you took me to in Sacramento.
Yes.
Those, I would say, are practically speaking like clubhouses,
Right.
You come there, can I bring my deity? Sure. Where do I put it? Wherever you like. How about one over there? That's okay. And next thing you know, you have people coming in groups to worship their particular deity in a otherwise public auditorium.
Yeah.
It becomes totally debased in terms of being an actual temple where you walk in and you feel the sacred atmosphere in a united element of love of God.
Mm-hmm. Then Prabhupada further says, all our managers should be spiritually advanced, simple, and honest in carrying out the orders of the spiritual master. Huh?
Yeah, well, yes. In other words, they don't need to be corporate directors.
Right.
The order of the spiritual master is very simple. Dance, chant, take prasadam. Sunday feast, evening classes, morning classes. These are all very straightforward things. You can put everything that a temple does in a day, 24 hours, onto one side of a piece of paper.
Mm.
And by handwriting. It's not very complicated. Once you know how to do it, you just say, oh yeah, Sunday feast, make gulab jamuns. Okay. It doesn't, it's time to vacuum the temple. Oh yeah, okay, let's vacuum the temple.
Right.
It's not very complicated if everyone is doing spiritual life. If
Right.
people have a bunch of different offices that they're sitting in, then it becomes complicated.
Right. And then Prabhupada says that will be a nice standard. And then this is a very important statement. Prabhupada says democracy in spiritual affairs is not at all good, but breeds power politics. We should be careful about power politics. So what does this Prabhupada say? What does he mean by this? Democracy in spiritual affairs is not at all good, but breeds power politics. We should be very careful about power politics.
Democracy means the voice of the people.
Hmm.
I like to say that Prabhupada with the GBC did not establish democracy, he established a republic. A republic means the state votes, not the people in the state vote. So similarly, the temple president votes for GBC, but the temple congregation doesn't vote for the GBC. As soon as the temple president, as soon as the GBC is elected by the congregations, then you have power politics. Who's going to do more for me? Who's going to give me what I want? Who's going to make things the way I'd like to see them? How can I get some money out of this? How can I get some preference? How can I be honored? How can they give me an honorary spiritual degree? That comes out of the population asking for material benefits instead of asking, how do I render more unalloyed, selfless service to Lord Krishna?
So
Go ahead.
the managers should be spiritually advanced, and they should be elected by the congregation, and the congregation elects the temple president, who is spiritually advanced, and then he elects the GBC.
Right. The
Okay.
congregation doesn't elect the GBC.
Yes.
The temple president does.
Okay.
Now, when you say Prabhupada says in that letter that the temple president should be elected by the congregation,
I think
Did
it's
you
there
say-
somewhere.
oh, you didn't just read it.
No, I didn't read that part. I'm saying that here in this discussion that we're having.
Well, in this discussion, but the thing is, Prabhupada never mandated that the temple president be elected, and I think there's a simple reason. Supposing I have a house, and I bought the house, it's my house, and I want to have temple programs there, and I start out
Right.
temple
right.
programs. And then maybe 25, 30 people come, they say, we love this program, we hate the guy that owns the house. Let's vote him out of temple president, somebody else will be temple president.
Right.
You can't do that, this is my house, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that.
So it can be both, but if you have a public building like New Dwarka, or any building that's purchased as a temple, then you've got president, vice president, etc. They can be voted in by the congregation.
Right. Right. That's a very good point, because something like that did happen to me, because when I was working with the ISKCON people, a couple of devotees started this, and then they left, and then I was running the thing, and then they came back and voted me out.
Right.
So
So
this
that wasn't the right thing to do, was it?
it wasn't the right thing to do, and I told them, hey, I would never remove you guys, and why did you guys remove me? In this way, this power politics came into play. I was like, even though we have a disagreement, let's stick together and work it out. But they wanted to, remove me from the nonprofit and, take all the money or whatever they wanted to do. Who knows?
That's the thing. It's worse than taking you out of power. If they take you out of power to say, Ramaswamy, we don't like the way you're running things. We think he should run things. But no, they wanted to get you out because you controlled the money.
No.
So what they wanted was the money. They didn't
Right.
care about you being voted in or out,
Right.
right? I mean, what difference is it to them if you're voted in or voted out?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they also had control of the money. It was not only one person, it's three people. So two against one. So this is very, I was never for, this party power politics. Everyone is independent. They can have, their own ideas and discussions, but let's discuss this. We were still in the process of discussion, but they took me out. So this thing applies to what you were saying.
And so I understand you've explained that then they took you out, but it backfired.
Yeah. and that's that. So then Prabhupada says, our only aim should be that each and every devotee is fully dedicated to Krishna. Then things will go on nicely.
Yeah,
Right.
because nobody's trying to do something for themselves.
Yes. Yes.
If I want to do something for myself, then I'm in the temple and all the managers have rooms. I want a bigger room and a better desk.
Hmm.
But if you're just thinking of serving Krishna, that's the way Rameshwar started out. He was sitting on the floor doing all his bookkeeping, sitting on the floor with a torn saffron dhoti and saffron kurta. he started out so nice and humble, even though he was from a wealthy family.
Right, right. Yeah, these things are very important to think about and to apply, because if we don't think, eventually we'll get cheated. I mean, that's something I experienced. If we're not very careful.
Well, yeah, being careful means don't let it get started.
Yeah.
So in Detroit Temple at 674 Forest Avenue, nobody was going to vote out Bhagavan as the temple president because he was the guy that leased the building.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need to vote him out.
Jai. All right.
So we have 3 minutes before we're done.
Haribol. Jai. All right. So thank you to the devotees watching. If they have any questions, comments, they can send us. We're on WhatsApp and we're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. Our link to our WhatsApp group is there in the description. Please join it if you'd like to be part of it. And you can contact any one of us here. Let's see.
What we should do is ask our people out there what we have Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is fine with me. We were doing 7 days a week before, which was cool, but it was very time consuming for us. I mean, we have other things to do sometimes. And the question is, are there another 3 or 4 days a week that people would prefer?
Jai, yes. So all the devotees watching, if they'd like for us to conduct the meetings on another day, you can message us or call us and we'll arrange and we'll adjust our schedule, because our schedule is pretty flexible. Right?
Interestingly, we got a lot of questions yesterday and a few today. That doesn't matter because we're broadcasting out. It's going onto YouTube. It's going onto Facebook. Our meetings. So our meetings are not wasted, even if nobody dials in, or it's just Ramachandra and myself and Rupa Manjari talking. It doesn't matter because everyone hearing, hopefully, we pray, will benefit by the nature and the purpose of the discussion.
Jai, Haribol. So should we end it here, Prabhus? Thank you very much, Prabhus. We're right on time. And if anyone would like to contact us, whoever's watching on Facebook and YouTube, please join our group. The link is in the description in Facebook and on YouTube.
Where's Mahaprabhu?
Mahaprabhu, he exited.
He did?
Yeah. So thank you, Narayan Prabhu, Rupa Manjari.
Thank you.
It's just the 3 of us this time, so it's a good discussion.
Yeah. Well, we had Vinay.
Oh, yes, we had Vinayak Prabhu. Okay, Prabhus, I'll end it here. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Is he still on?